Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Luke Madrid, and on behalf of the show, I wanted to give a very warm thank you to our Patreon subscribers, Mary Helen Madrid Null, Jen vs. Infinity, and Ava Sinclair. May the blessings of good fortune, long life, and deep joy be upon you. You give us hope that someday we'll have enough support and momentum to give you the show that we imagine in our deepest, darkest fantasies. Our midsummer show was kind of popular, so if you have any movies, new ones, old ones, especially classics that you want us to break down on a symbolic level and give you the goods on, and give a Fnord report for our subscribers, let us know. Otherwise, if you just want to support us right now and become our Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/thewholerabbit, and you could subscribe there for $5 a month. For just $5 a month, you'd be really supporting us, but you'll also get one extra show a month, which we will be working on very soon, as well as all the normal shows like 2-3 days early. Also, you get all our artwork in high resolution and a lot of other extras. So yeah, on to the show. Are we done sound chicken?
Sound chicken.
We are done sound chicken.
You heard Colby sound chicken.
Gotta sacrifice one to Moloch later in the backyard.
No, dude. Like, have you ever seen Simon King of the Witches?
No.
Okay, so Simon King of the Witches is like an old school movie that like we're probably gonna have to break down at some
That's
point.
The one with Poke Runyon in it?
No, Poke Runyon swears up and down that he was like the guy that got copied for the character. At least
he's the inspiration.
Yeah, but I say, that's all a big old load of ego going on. But yeah, he like sacrifices a chicken to Moloch and then just shit hits the fan.
Yeah, don't do that.
And so like that's where I really think Hillary Clinton came up with that joke during her election.
Whoa. This is not a witch hunt.
Well, like, this is the thing.
This is not a witch hunt, Andrew.
No, she said, like, what am I supposed to sacrifice a chicken to Moloch? Because the whole thing in that movie is he does, like, a reversal spell using Moloch and sacrificing a chicken.
It's not a witch hunt, Andrew, because it actually kind of is.
Well, it should be.
That's what we're talking about.
That witch needs to be hunted down.
We're not talking politics, and if there's no witch, you know why we don't have witch hunts, Andrew? It's because of this.
Because we're not allowed to anymore.
Yeah, because
wait, we still have them, but we just can't burn them at the stake. We have to like fillet them on Facebook.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Whole Rabbit, where we don't just shame the rabbit on Facebook and tell it can't make movies anymore.
No, we crush it with rocks and throw it in the bog, see if it floats or not, and then burn it at the stake because it's a witch.
Well, we're really talking about
the Malleus Maleficarum.
And the witch's hammer.
The witch's hammer, as it is known.
And some of the examples.
We're also talking a little bit about
history.
Yeah, talking about histories. Just a tiny bit.
Yeah, at least for us.
It all starts with Heinrich Kramer, who joined the Dominican order at a young age.
Of course, the Dominican order.
Well, here's the thing. He was really frustrated, I guess, because
I bet.
he got pushed out of town because he couldn't prove that this one lady wasn't a witch.
Well, he didn't have a rule book.
Well, here's the thing. He got really obsessed with her sexual habits, and that just kind of grossed everyone out. And they were like, okay,
this guy's a pervert.
You need to go, buddy. So what did he do? He went to the Pope, and he was like, listen, man. We got to do something about this witch problem. They're really frustrating me. In 1484, Pope Innocent VIII issued the Summaris Desiderantes
the redonkulous dictum.
The Summus Desiderantes Effectibus, which publicly acknowledged witchcraft and called for the persecution of witches and sorcerers, specifically in the area along the Rhine. Basically urged local authorities and inquisitors to comply at the threat of excommunication. You got a witch problem. You guys got to do something about it.
Whether you think you do or not, you got a witch problem.
I had to do a little bit of digging. It was actually Heinrich Kramer who was like pushing it forward. Like he was the one who was like, yeah, man, you got to get this going. And supposedly, after it was, put into effect, he still wasn't happy with it. It didn't quite give him the power that he wanted. He basically retired.
But like, it just sounds like because that just sounds like a creepo, like some pervert, some old school pervert who's like, well, of course I'm a good guy, I'm a Christian, so I can just, they must be witches, they must be evil.
Yeah, and so while he was interrogating Helena Schuberin, he got really obsessed with her sexual habits in the trial, I guess, and then he was cast out by the local bishop of Innsbruck, and that's when he was just like, you know what? I'm out, and he retired for 2 years, and that was around the time he got the Pope to do this, and after that time of 2 years...
Wait, did he write the thing?
Yeah, after 2 years, that's what we're talking about. The Malleus Maleficarum was issued.
He wrote that whole thing.
That's what we're talking about, yeah.
Because, oh my god, that guy's like a great sci-fi writer, because that shit is some funny shit.
It's some angry, sexually frustrated Dominican priest.
Yeah. And, like, it kind of shows in the work.
It's definitely some horror movie stuff. Well, I figured out here
are
that...
we there yet to where we can talk about the contents, or we got a little bit to go?
Well, sure. It was the biggest selling book next to the Bible for 200 years.
Oh, yeah, dude. It was not as big as Jesus. Not bigger than Jesus, but it was, like, almost there. Almost as big as Jesus was burning witches.
Well, I mean, you could...
It's pretty cool.
You could get into the confusing wisdom of the Bible... Or you could read about what the sexual habits of witches do and like how they eat kids and what you should do to them if you find out. And
it's that scare arousal shit that people are into.
It's the sort of stuff you'd read on the paranormal section to 4chan. It's creepypasta.
Yeah, it's like fucking old school creepypasta. Like before the internet, this is what people wrote down and were like thinking about. Oh my god, like all the things, they jump from like first person to like some sort of short story to some sort of like D&D rule book on how to like find and hunt witches, how to like identify them.
Oh, the text itself, how it goes in and out of like, what is this document? Because if on the Wikipedia it's like it's a legal document of how to find and interrogate and persecute witches. But it's a lot of subjective, metaphysical, theological speculation going on in there as well. Like, that's about half of what it is, well, because of this, and because of this, and because of this, then this. Therefore, we should do this.
Yeah, like real circular logic going through every sort of argument. And then its contradiction is more evidence to your assertion of them being a witch.
We'll explain that, Andrew. You kind of understand a little better than I do.
You have a rule book, how to like decipher which one's a witch and which one isn't.
Like the trial by dunking. And...
Yeah, the trial by ordeal. And so like the ordeals are different.
So so you just torture them outright, even if you don't know if they're a witch or not.
Well, yeah, because like
in Monty Python, right?
Yeah, it's just she turned me into a newt, and it's like, wait, you're not a newt, buddy.
So you dunk them in water, and then if they die, they're innocent, and then if they don't, they're guilty, and then you could torture them and burn them.
Okay, so
that kind of a thing.
I saw some like different things, but like one of them was you have them strapped to a chair, and you dunk them in a river, and if they die, then they were guilty. And if they live, it's because God helped them. Now, I've heard another one that if you, like, tie a rope around them and, like, dump them in the bog, and if they sink, they're innocent, and if they float, they're guilty. And that's the funny part is, like, some people think they're like, oh, yeah, if they sink, they're just going to let them drown. It's like, that's the whole point of the rope. If they're going to save the freaking witch so that they can burn them, you don't think they're going to save the innocent person? And they try to resuscitate them, and...
I'm sure there was some people who maybe survived and then weren't burnt as witches, but it was just always bad. It was mostly bad, probably most all the time.
Because witches know how to tread water.
Well, this is the thing. It's like, at the end of the day, you're just killing educated people, or stubborn people, or nobles, or
people smarter than you.
Or just women that you're pissed off that you didn't,
or women who have property, because that was a big thing, especially in Salem.
Or you're just pissed off you can't bed them down, or marry them,
or just like do weird creepy things because you're all into torture devices as well.
That's so messed up. I know that sounds like I'm faking it or something, but I'm not really into torture stuff. Like
you'll watch like horror movies, but you're not into torture stuff. I don't get that.
I'm not really into like the Saw movies or torture sequences.
Those aren't horror movies. Those are gore movies. You're like, horror movies are like psychological thrillers. Like The Shining, that's a horror movie. That one's like horrid because like it's all psychological.
I
and really
didn't have to
fucked up.
watch anyone get tortured in The Shining.
Yeah. Midsummer had a little bit of gore, you know. It was like Conan level gore, like you see like a face get.
We don't want to talk
malleted.
spoilers too much,
But
because that might be in the trailer. I don't know. Okay, well let's talk about the Malleus Maleficarum. So the first thing to know.
I thought we were on torture devices. I wanted to talk more about that shit.
Well, we're getting there. That happens after the trial. We can't just jump right to the juicy part and
Well,
then
see,
jump into the bureaucratic crap. We got to
another-
start with the bureaucratic crap.
Well, see, that's the thing. It seems like the bureaucratic stuff is just like.
Well, some of it's funny.
It's just a rationalization for the carnage that we're trying to get to at the end.
Obviously.
So, like, okay.
So that's the setup.
Because you have to do it lawful. So
I hate to call torture a joke, because it's not.
But this is pretty funny.
You got to laugh about horrible things, man. That's the nature of...
Alright, so, like, we can't torture the witches yet. First, we have to find them, identify them as a witch, objectively.
Well, if you're Kramer, first you have to prove to people that you have the legitimate authority to start doing this. So
Okay,
what you do...
What gives us authority to hunt witches?
Confusion. So what you do...
Okay.
is you take the Summus Desiderantes that was issued by the Pope, and then you put that as a preface in your book, right?
Which is...
The Malleus Maleficarum.
Wait, the Suis...
Which sort of makes it seem like
Desiderantes?
that's the act that was issued by Pope Innocent VIII.
Okay, so you have this Catholic doctrine that says this is the law now.
Yeah, Pope Innocent VIII in 1484.
So some 15th century freaking papal law.
Kramer pokes the Pope and is like, "Listen, witches, you gotta take care of this problem." So he passes this act. He gets frustrated because it doesn't give him what he wants. So he retires for 2 years, writes the Malleus Maleficarum, and then as he prints the book, he puts the act, the Summus Desiderantis, in the prologue to make it seem like he has the authority and that this is connected and this is being issued by the church. Because just 3 years later...
So he basically did a greater working where he just slapped on some actual law to his BS book.
Yeah, and it kind of became a thing for a while. And then it was referred...
Real.
It kept being referred back to later. But, for 200 years, it was a bestseller. So it was sort of a de facto...
It's gotta be good if it's popular, you know?
It became like a de facto document for witch hunting and for, all that stuff. And beliefs about witches and their pacts with the devil. It's the classic stuff you saw in the movie The Witch. Maybe we should do a Nord report on that. I don't know if there's anything to find there because it seems like a faithful reproduction of weird stories that were told back then in journals and stuff.
Yeah, the one thing you realize is that everyone's evil except for the girl.
And she joins the devil.
Yeah,
so
she joins the devil. So, like, what does that tell you?
It's tastefully subversive. That's why it was good. So, okay. Spoilers. Oh, yeah, whatever. Damn it. Sorry. Basically, the beginning of the text is like, look, witches are real.
Oh, you better believe it.
And to think otherwise is to savor heresy.
Yeah, because if you don't believe in witches, you're probably a witch yourself, or you're in league with the witches.
Or maybe you're bewitched by witches. Or maybe you're just sympathetic to witches.
Or the devil has you.
You're sort of on the dark side just by not believing in witches.
So groupthink all the way, or you're a witch.
Or you're a witch.
Oh, wow, this is...
And then the second thing it says, like, look, witches are not that powerful. Only God can change something permanently. Witches can basically just...
alter
something temporarily, or it'll spoil later, or it'll go bad somehow.
Oh, is this like the whole thing about, like, leprechaun gold, where you have, like, gold, but if you try to grab it out of your pocket,
and
it's just not gold anymore, it's like leaves or stones or something?
Glamour magic, yeah, it is mentioned within the text. And then he goes on this complicated explanation how, like, let's say you're afflicted by a certain type of demon, and it only happens, say, during the full moon, then that means that demons are under the effect of corporeal objects, and in the hierarchy of the way things work, it means that devils have less power than corporeal objects, and so witches, therefore, would have even less power than that. So there's a lot of agreement going on between the devil, the witch, and God allowing permission for this stuff to happen. He even says in one part that devils are not even that powerful. They don't even have power except for a subtle art. But then he kind of backpedals and says, but look at Job, where the devil has like so much power. And that he even says that the devil is made to fear nothing. So imagine that. God made the devil to fear nothing. That's how badass he made the devil.
That sounds like the Jungle Book story about how the tiger got its stripes. It goes out and finds man, the one thing that it would fear, and then like killed one of them. And once a year, there's a night where it doesn't fear man, and so it kills. And so like that's the story, is that like the tiger gets the balls one night and kills man, and then like the forest whips it, gives it its stripes, you know? Jungle Book's a really good book. But yeah, that totally reminds me of it. The devil being able to like not fear anything. It's like, why would the devil fear anything? That's what I just never got. The devil's like in their viewpoint, the devil's like simultaneously the highest angel fallen, right? Also like this like little freaking cartoon character that you sell spicy candies on with.
But also something that's made to fear nothing, as if Lucifer was made to fall. And then it also speaks later of Lucifer's power being so much greater than all the other angels.
It's all too much like a wizard did it.
There's a whole section that talks about some of the metaphysical assumptions of demons.
Yeah, what are some of these metaphysical assumptions of demons? Because this is really, really interesting, is how they actually like think about
looking
demons.
at the witch's hammer from a demonology perspective. Yeah, so there's some of that in there.
Because we can look at it like from presentism and be like, these guys are crazy.
Yeah, that's sort of annoying, I guess.
But like, how are they actually thinking about these in like their actual daily lives? Like, they wake up in the morning and they're like, okay, God, angels, demons, the devil, like witches. It's all out there.
So God doesn't like evil to exist, and he doesn't want evil to exist, but he allows evil to exist because good happens in spite of evil. And this shows the greater power that is good. And so God allows it to occur. He allows devils and demons to tempt both the faithful and the unfaithful. And God basically allows the devil to torture you for your sins. So typically it's assumed that if you had a miscarriage, or if you have a little devil child,
or you knock over the mic,
it's because of your former sins. And that's why God is allowing these devils to punish you or mess with you. And then even Job, Job is used a lot as a reference in here. So even if you're completely faithful, you can still be tempted and beguiled by the devil. So witchcraft is between God, the devil, and the witch.
So it's like a trinity.
All parties are involved.
Okay, so it's like the trifecta. That's why triangles are evil.
None of this happens without God's permission, basically. And God at any point can amend what's going on.
So this gets me back to my whole thing about it being like a D&D rule book, is that's very much like, okay, God's like the GM, and he's like running the game, and he's like,
very much.
He's like, okay, I want you guys to be good characters, and I want you to defeat evil, so I have to make evil things, right? Is that the concept here?
There's lots of confused and conflicted ideas about devils and hell and evil, so let's get started here. First, Heinrich sort of says, well, the angels and God and nature is all order, and everything is perfect and nothing is superfluous. So clearly the devils and their orders would basically be all random and everything is chaos.
Arbitrary.
And nothing is ordered, yeah, basically.
So particle theory?
But then he backpedals quite a bit after that and sort of says the opposite, which happens a lot in the Malleus Maleficarum. I'm probably saying it wrong. Devils basically have different jobs. Much speculation is made upon why and how this is so. And he mentions a place in the Bible where it talks about the scales of Leviathan interlocking together, and he relates that to demons, how demons all work together. And they align themselves sort of like an army, and they have specific things that are more specific to their nature. Some demons are more suitable to some jobs than others, and more suitable to torturing certain people based on their certain qualities. And also astrology and the alignment of the stars factors in a little bit to what they can and cannot do.
And when they can and cannot do it.
Right. So the devils are not in hell, because that's a place that things that are being judged are going to go after the judgment. The demons exist in a place called the lower mists, and that's where they're deputized with specific duties.
Wait, so demons don't exist in hell. This is really, really new stuff on the
Not the ones that are tormenting people up on Earth.
So demons live in horror movies, basically.
They live in some strange thing called the mists, so the
So
lower
they-
mists. So
They
I
live in, like,
imagine
horror movie dimension.
I imagine Silent Hill.
Yeah, like horror movie dimension. They live in like a seemingly close representation of our world, but just like horror movieized.
There's a Stephen King movie where they're all stuck in a grocery store and some military experiment opens up a portal and all these mists comes out. It might even be called The Mist. Yeah, so it's like that. It's like all the demons and stuff are all swirling around in this mist.
I like my idea that it's like horror movie dimension. That's like
It's the same thing.
close to ours. Like it's not quite Homeline, but it's definitely not Baseline.
Different demons have different roles. Asmodeus is the creature of judgment, and that's related to fornication because Sodom and Gomorrah drew so much judgment and they returned to salt. And so Asmodeus, meaning creature of judgment, is the devil of fornication. So if there's fornication about, it has to do with Asmodeus.
If there's fornicating happening, someone's judging that to be fornicatable, right?
Correct.
So it's like beast of judgment, right?
Mammon is the god of riches and avarice.
Mammon was a term for wealth in Judea during the Roman occupation. Like that was like a term meaning like wealth or riches. And then it got turned into some sort of demon later on with like Christian theologians around this time period where they're just like, oh, well, you know, you can't serve Mammon and God, so therefore Mammon has to be some like incorporeal spirit or some disembodied entity or something like that.
Basically, you know, you can't
Then-
serve two masters.
Yeah, but he invented, like, that's like an invented demon.
That's sort of how we've figured out what demons are on this show, is they're the personification of confusions and problems, and
It's like the Monopoly Man.
which
like the
actually
Fat
sort of
Cat-
makes sense.
It's like the Fat Cat Monopoly Man, or like the depictions of fat politicians. Like, that's what Mammon would be. It's that idea. Not a real, like, it's not like some real Jewish demon or anything. It's just like a term meaning wealth. So like I you know, right away I'm really, really, really skeptical about this guy and his treatise on how to hunt witches.
Why would you be skeptical?
Well, I might be a witch, you know, according to the book. So
Oh, you might
I'll
be a
keep
witch.
I'll keep listening.
Have you made any pacts with the devil? Do you have any birthmarks?
Freckles.
Have you ever been impotent?
No.
That's good, because if you have ever been flaccid and not been able to get hard, it could be because you've been bewitched.
But like when certain times if you're hard, it's because you're bewitched.
That could also happen.
So like which one is it?
You can basically blame your boner on a woman and get her killed for it at any time back in these days.
Patriarchy.
Yeah, this is a really perfect example of the evils that patriarchy is capable of fulfilling in its diluted form.
Real toxic masculinity.
Super toxic masculinity in its most absolute form, I think. Besides maybe the Holocaust, you know.
But then again, isn't it also like that midsummer?
Which it was.
But isn't it also like that midsummer groupthink, where they just all go with it?
Yeah, a little bit. So
I guess it's both.
it's a little bit of both, but in
It's
this,
just the
but
pathologies.
I mean, here's the reason. So much of it was perpetrated against women, and for reasons that are just ridiculous, and for reasons that like women were empowering themselves. You know, like if you knew something about herbs, or if you knew another language.
Well, don't
Just basic stuff you could get killed for. Where if you were a guy, you'd get the pass. And then there were passages where it's like, yeah, well, basically, like if I can't get hard, it's because of a witch.
Well, don't assume that just because somebody was tried as a witch means they're a woman. There's
Well, they
plenty-
mostly were.
Well,
That's the thing.
a lot of them, but like there was a lot
Most
of
of
dudes
them.
who were tried as witches as well.
There were definitely dudes.
You know, Salem had a guy who was charged as a warlock who was crushed because he didn't want to like put in a plea deal,
And
but he didn't even want to plead guilty or not guilty, so they crushed him.
I would imagine there'd be a lot of like the weirdos on the edges of town, old people that no one wanted to take care of.
Smart people,
Yeah, agitators.
old women who don't give a fuck about what anyone thinks.
Hell yeah.
Like, okay, how far are we in the description of the book? Like, because it's, like, broken down into, like, 3 parts.
Well, we're still sort of on the first part dealing with a lot of the metaphysical assumptions that allow for witchcraft and what witchcraft is capable of.
Okay, so this is making the argument, like, the first part of the book is, like, making the argument for why you need to go down and hunt witches. And then, like, explaining different scenarios when witches did stuff that caused problems.
It's just hitting you with everything. It's like, look, witches are a thing. If you don't believe in it, that's heresy. So we could do really bad stuff to you or kill you if you don't believe in witches.
Because you're under witchcraft or you're practicing witchcraft.
Basically. This just sort of went on until it was called off. And that's that. It was just something that was enacted on the people. And
Until it got a little too crazy, but as we move down the book, like, it goes from basically explaining like, okay, there's witches out there and we're doing it.
Okay, well,
this is what they do. This is like, they make pacts with the devil, and so this is how they do it.
Yeah, let's move to section 2, because we want to talk about that. How do you make a pact with the devil? So let's just read, like, straight from it. The first method is when witches meet together in the conclave on a set day, and the devil appears to them in the assumed body of a man, and urges them to keep faith with him, promising them worldly prosperity and length of life, and they recommend a novice to his acceptance. And the devil asks whether she will abjure the faith and forsake the holy Christian religion and the worship of the anomalous woman, for they so call the most blessed Virgin Mary, and never venerate the sacraments. And if he finds their voice or disciple willing, then the devil stretches out his hand, and so does the novice. And she wears with upraised hand to keep that covenant. And when this is done, the devil at once says,
That is not enough.
and when the disciple asks what more must be done, the devil demands the following oath of homage to himself, that she give herself to him, body and soul, forever, and doeth utmost to bring others of both sexes to his power. He adds finally that she is to make certain inuments for the bones and limbs of children, especially those who have been baptized, by all which means she will be able to fulfill her wishes with his help.
Okay, so now, like,
It's pretty metal.
that's pretty goddamn metal, dude. Like, that right there is the reason why this is such a funny document.
Well, what are they going to do with the limbs of children, you see? Because I went and found that out.
Like,
in the book.
Okay, number one, how does this guy even know what's going on in the... But he knows, like...
It's because a young witch told him once.
But it's like these really, really, really descriptive freaking, like, short stories.
That's because a witch told him, Andrew.
But it just jumps from, like, okay, here are the rules, to here's a story about, like, this shit going on, back to, like, the rules and, like, how to go about doing horrible stuff in a lawful manner.
Listen, he was having a polite conversation with a witch that he was torturing, and she just happened to tell him about this ceremony.
How old is this supposed witch? What creepy things is this guy doing to her? You know, like, this is just so weird.
Pulling her breasts off, maybe.
Yeah, probably.
If that's one thing that they could have done.
Oh yeah, with those weird clamps.
Yeah.
They used to just pull people's breasts off.
So,
Oh my god, like, but see, that's the thing, is even the wordage, like, they could, like, cut out half the words and get straight to the point.
Oh yeah, I talked about this with my coworker. I was like, why does English have so many, like, empty phrases that you could just cut straight out? Like, why do they have...
Well, here's the one thing that I noticed.
Here, whereby, forthwith, just...
It's because English is meant to be a precise language. We're supposed to be able to pinpoint not only how we're talking about a thing, but at what tense, how many of things are we talking about, the possession of the thing, its orientation in the three-dimensional space, and its projected orientation in the future. Our language is precise. It's very scientific. We can actually describe, like, very, very precisely.
That was very precise, Andrew.
Precisely.
I heard somebody say that English was like a demonic language. Maybe that was you.
No, I would use German as my demonic language. That's...
German is the scientific language. At least it was before the war.
Latin's the scientific language.
Latin is a dead language.
But it's still the scientific language, because that's the That's the language you use for all your scientific names.
Whatever, loser boy.
And that's
what do you know about science?
And that's the language you have to use if you're gonna hunt down some witches.
The proper language of science is German.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
9. I think it's French. Maybe French is the...
That's the language of trying to get the panties off.
No, I thought that was Swiss.
That's how much, I don't know. Now we're just into stereotypes.
No, we're just talking smack on Europeans.
Well, they deserve a little bit of it for all this witch burning. I suppose we did some witch burning as well.
You know, they never came up with any good ideas.
Well, they did come up with, democracy.
Nah, even that's not a good idea. You gotta have, like, a representational democracy with like a hybrid of republic and democracy.
I'm pretty sure they came up with masonry too, which we had to thank for everything too.
Those are the Brits. They're not European.
Why are we talking about this? Are we just guilty because we burned so many witches?
Well, okay, that's the thing is.
Are we having some guilt right now?
Us in America, we totally burned ourselves some witches at one point.
I sort of stopped playing The Witcher after I got to the witch burning part because it creeped me out so bad. It's just torture creeps me out.
Yeah.
Like, why did people gotta torture people? Why couldn't they just cut their heads off?
See, that's why I don't watch horror movies, because that's what they kind of turned into at a point when I was growing up. Let's watch this, like, hour-and-a-half snuff film.
In terms of witch hunts, after 9/11, it became the good guys who did the torturing in movies. Because before that, it used to be the James Bond villains that used to do the torturing. And in fact, it became much more prevalent in films after 9/11. Because, you got to make torture seem like it's sort of a thing that you should maybe do under some circumstances. But as we probably could have figured out from back in the day, it doesn't really produce any
results.
Yeah, it doesn't produce any results.
All right, scratch that. It produces all sorts of results that are not useful for anything.
Exactly.
Because there's just like a point where you can torture somebody who just tell you whatever the fuck you want to hear.
I don't know what an ass or vagina looks like. That's the whole point of the GTA 5 mission.
Oh, dude, that's the worst mission.
It is. It's terrible. It's supposed to be horrible.
Like, the whole part is horrible, and then he just, like, the character you're playing as doesn't even care that he's doing it, and he, like, helps the guy out after he does it.
Yeah, he breaks the guy. Instead of taking him to do a ditch and shooting him or something, he drives him to the airport, and he's like, well, why did you torture me? He's like, because it was fun. That's the only thing it's good for.
Yeah, it's only for the torturer.
So that was making the statement that, do you think, Andrew, that some of these priests were doing all this torture stuff?
Of course, that's why they went into...
For fun?
Yeah, that's why they went into the clergy, man. They just wanted to, like, torture some people. Like, they want to get their sick little power fantasies off and be told that they're a good person while doing it. That's why everyone does all these weird, crazy witch hunt things. It's, like, just the weirdest thing about our species is just, like, we want to be good people, but we want to do horrible, chimpish shit. And, like, the more technologically advanced we are, the more barbaric our chimpish shit can get.
Speaking of which, I think the most horrible thing I read this whole time of torture devices they would use is they would open a hole in you, right? Put a rodent in there, and then put a hot piece of metal over the opening, and then the rodent would just, like, chew through your body trying to escape.
Oh, dude, that sounds horrid.
That's insane. That's insanely bad. Who thought of that?
Who does that? Like,
they did that.
Like,
that's Catholic, according to the Malleus Maleficarum, which
that's
was
just medieval. Those, like, that's the thing is, like, you say Catholic, but, like, those were just people doing people stuff. Like,
fair enough.
Like, the religion was just the authority at the time. It never changed.
I'm just
even
referring
when
to
they went secular.
I'm just referring to the verbiage in the source text. That's
but, like,
all.
Even when Europe went secular, they were still fucking brutal and barbaric. Like, that was just medieval. We're still getting over that. You know? Like, and, like, not even that much, necessarily.
We found a little bit of information that might be useful to the 4chan community regarding incubi and succubi.
Oh, yeah, because they have, like, a whole rule book on how incubi and succubi work.
Oh, it just goes on and on, baby.
This is, like, the funniest segment, because this is what this guy was into.
It's, like, the first thing in the book, because there's 700 pages or so.
And, like, a lot of them are, like, these are questions that people ask, and, like, these are answers to the questions that people ask. You know, it's, like, kind of, like...
questions you want answered.
Yeah, the format that he's, like, wrote all this stuff down is like, oh, question this one.
Some of it seems to validate what I read in Robert Anton Wilson's Prometheus Rising, which speculates that the church serves as the externalization of the biosurvival circuit and basically works on the macro scale of determining who's allowed to procreate and who's not, and who with who. Because there is so much talk about teleporting semen in the first chapter of this book, man. It is just I can't.
How are you gonna explain all these childs out of wedlock? You know, because everyone's supposed to be a good Christian. It's got to be demons doing this shit.
Well, that's basically what it said. Is that the devil this is okay. I read like 3 or 4 pages of this weird theological mumbo jumbo, so just bear with me if I get some of this wrong. But I did read it, and I did read it over and over to see if I could get it right. So here we go. Basically, life comes from the soul. So when 2 people get it on in holy matrimony, the sanctity of marriage keeps the devil and witches out of the sexual act and allows for the purity of the life soul to create a new person. And this happens both on the soul level and it happens on the spiritual level. Did I say that? Is that redundant? It happens. It happens on the soul and spirit. It happens on the soul level and the biological level. So the semen goes into the. So
that's with all these lust babies, like created from unwed mothers.
Well, okay. If you do the act outside of wedlock, then you are prone to the effect of witches and Satan and the devil
and demon semen,
because that's what God allows.
Why don't you tell us about demons?
There is no demon semen, okay? This is what you need to understand.
Tell us about
Andrew.
demon semen.
This is what you don't understand and what you need to understand,
Enlighten
Andrew.
me. I'm very national on this subject.
Okay. Demons don't produce semen as such. They just steal it from other boys and then put it inside of girls to produce the child out of wedlock, which could then also be contaminated a little bit with some bad juju energies, right? So if the baby doesn't come from, it might...
Wait. So, like, demons are running around gathering
So let's say you're on 4chan, okay?
And you're jacking it.
Say you're jacking it on 4chan to your little succubus, or your, then the succubus takes your seed, right, into herself, where she can only really keep it warm just for a little while, because according to the Malleus Maleficarum, it's the warmth of the semen is a really important part.
Otherwise it dies.
So
it needs to stay warm.
So they can only really keep it warm. Right. And so because the devil moves very fast.
I mean, it's called a hot load for a reason.
So they have to keep it. It's like dominoes. They have to put it in a special demon pouch and then transport it to a member of the opposite sex.
They're like semen kangaroos.
They're like Uber Eats for semen. And yeah, like they're like they have little pouches.
Like kangaroos.
Yeah, so really if you're having sex with a succubus, your seed gets transported over to the opposite sex, where the demon, I don't know how the transfer is made then to a demon of the opposite sex, because I want to say that it just transforms into the other sex, because that's much funnier.
Transgenders more than meets the eye.
They probably have some weird semen transfer ritual between a male demon and a female demon, because I don't think Heinrich Kramer could even conceive of a demon changing sexes. And then
well, see, the demons have sex, and then you have all the semen tainted with demon sex.
So, well, hold on. You put the semen into the incubi, and then that puts it into the woman, and then the woman has a child from another man. So you see, that's how it works.
So the succubus has sex with the incubus after retrieving the semen.
That could also be how it happens.
And then you have demon
that's
tainted semen.
I think that makes it more unholy, so that would probably hold.
You already came up with a theory on how that actually taints the semen.
I only mildly had to torture you for that. It's crazy.
But we can look back at this document through presentism and realize that it's only through demon sex that corrupts the semen.
I don't know if that's through the eyes of presentism, really.
I don't know.
That's through the eyes of you back in that time period.
Yeah, I guess so.
You just so are present in that time period, Andrew. You could just see it so clearly.
Because it's only through the act of vile fornication of these demonic spawn can, like, the holy sacrament be corrupted?
So
Yeah, so they have, like, all sorts of little rules like this in the book, right?
yeah, and what's really weird is that, like, every now and then there was like a nugget of what's almost sounded like modern wisdom.
Almost.
Like, they were trying to describe how subtle the art of evil and the devil was when they weren't trying to make it sound completely ridiculous. Like, they were saying,
So when he's not hiding in the shed.
they're like, if you put a metal beam on the ground and you just put it like over a puddle or just on the ground by itself, like, just anyone can walk along the beam like it's no big deal. But if you put the beam over something really high or something dangerous, like, the person, by virtue of their imagination, is just going to screw up. A witch's charms and stuff worked on the same principle, which is actually a pretty sophisticated way of looking at it, if you ask me. So
it's like if you're at a high enough energetic state,
you could transfer anxiety over to somebody just with your glance or whatever.
or the other way around, like you could just break through a witch's spell, which would be like transferring anxiety to you if it worked.
Yeah, like the evil eye. Like, almost every culture on Earth believes in the evil eye. So, I mean, go figure then that the description of that phenomena would be accurate then. Because that was maybe the one thing in there that made any kind of...
Oh, hell, even a YouTuber I was watching earlier today, he even mentioned the evil eye when he was talking about his trip to Sweden. So, I guess it's just everyone knows about the evil eye, man. So, anything more about the Malleus Maleficarum? The Malefactorum.
I don't know, you researched the witch burnings a little bit. And,
Yeah, so, okay.
like, how many witches did they burn? Just, was there, like a few here and there?
Okay, so, in the Connecticut colony, witchcraft was made against the law in 1642. And so that's when, before that, witchcraft was totally legal. It was, it was fine. Totally fine. Like, there was no laws in this area. They made witchcraft illegal based on two passages. One from Exodus, which is, don't suffer a witch to live, and one from Exodus, which is like, a man and also a woman who has familiar spirits or who are wizards will surely be put to death. And, like, because of those two passages, witchcraft, no, it's illegal. Can't do that. Now, that's fine when no one's practicing witchcraft. But as soon as it's put on the books, because why would you have to make laws against witchcraft? There's some witchcraft brewing,
Well, of course.
Yeah, and the first person to ever be killed for witchcraft, first person to ever be get capital punishment
In these witch burnings.
in the New World.
In the New World, okay.
In the New
because
World.
this is happening 200 years after the Malleus is written.
Yeah, this isn't Salem. This is Hartford, Connecticut.
So this is America, and this is like, because we're reading medieval Europe, and here medieval Europe is coming over to America, because wasn't it you could worship however you wanted to?
Yeah, that was the whole point. And now you're kind of getting burnt for being a witch. Mostly because they were all super Puritan, so they're like uber pious jerks. They're the kind of people who use, like, Christianity as a cudgel. Yeah, so they just totally did not... The whole idea of being able to worship the way you want wasn't enshrined until America was founded as a country. So there was still, like, a level of bigotry going on, even with the settlers who moved there, risking life and limb just to frickin' be away from all the drunken, rowdy people in Europe.
If you came here for freedom of religion, and you want to worship Pan, that's your business.
Should be allowed to. Even though our goddess is Columbia.
Am I speaking through the eyes of presentism when I'm saying that? I don't. Maybe a little bit, but
maybe.
We're supposed to be a separation of church and state, so.
Well, this is before America.
Okay, it's before America. So it's an English colony.
Yeah, it's still in English. It's 1662, man.
Okay, you're right.
This was 1640. 42 is when it was made illegal. 1647 is when the first person was ever killed.
Well, tell us about her.
Her name was Alice Young. In the 1650s, there was like 5 people tried and killed over like a couple of years, and it was kind of a little bit of a thing, and then it wasn't until 1662 where the real big scare of witches came. And we all know about Salem because, like, Salem's pretty famous because, like, lost their shit, stopped following the rules, and then just started, like, crushing and maiming and just, like...
So that one's famous because they just went off the books.
They went hog wild. Now, this one is a completely different pathology.
Hartford was more lawful.
Yeah, this was to the letter.
So were they using the Malleus?
They were. And that's the funniest part.
This is a bunch of Protestants.
Yes.
using
the Malleus Maleficarum
that the Catholics had already discarded and been like, this is crazy.
Well, they didn't have to deal with witches before they put the witch law on the books.
Wow.
You know, but once they did that, suddenly there's all these witches. Why else do we have a law unless we have a witch problem? You know?
Are you saying they used the law of attraction to create all these witches, Andrew?
I would, as an occultist, indeed say they used the law of attraction. Because why else would you have witch laws unless you want to burn some witches? You can't burn witches unless you have witches. So you gotta find some witches. How do you find witches? Well, you use the book that's meant to find witches.
From what I understand, both in Europe, the witch burning got really bad for a while during the 15th century. And then they were just like, you know what? We're not going to do this anymore. We're sorry.
Yeah, and then 200 years later, we kind of copied them.
That's so dumb.
It's so dumb, but, you know, what are you going to do? You got witches about.
So all the witches just moved to California and founded JPL, or what?
Well, okay, so here's the thing that you have to remember, is that these people living in Hartford, Connecticut, weren't just living in, like, modern-day Hartford, Connecticut. No. They were living in, like, edge of the world, spooky forest with savages that could, like, appear at any moment. These people were, like, literally living in Halloween.
Skinwalkers.
24/7.
Dude, if you go on 4chan, there are legit stories about people it's all sorts of manner of just insane, creepy stories just being out in the wilderness. Stuff that's not even that far from the city. Can you imagine back then?
Yeah, then they have no, like...
There's a bajillion animals within a mile of you. You know what I mean?
And it's not like you go inside and you're away from nature. No, you're still in nature, even indoors.
There's bugs, snakes.
Yeah, dirt. It's just everywhere.
Man, you're making me want to play some Red Dead from the safety of my bedroom.
Your comfy-ass bedroom. I don't want to play Red Dead because I don't support that reality. I want clean, plushy stuff and indoor plumbing.
We live like kings now.
Oh, dude, we live better than kings. We live better than emperors did back then. We're doing great. But these people were totally scared out of their wits, 24/7. So, like, when somebody starts, like, convulsing, and this is, like, the weird thing that started, like, the real big witch scare of 1662. Was that a little girl... Alright, here it is. Perfect. Alright, so basically, this girl died of, like, either fever or natural causes. And I guess there was a lady that was seen with their daughter days before. And, like, so they allege that she, like, a day after she met this lady, Good Wife Aries, or Goody Aries.
Okay, Goody Aries.
Yeah, and this is a really interesting character.
So she was a midwife?
She's just a good wife. Okay. I guess they were all midwives back then, But basically, she, like, broke out into convulsions saying, Father, help me. Good wife Aries is upon me. She chokes me. She kneels on my belly. She'll break my bowels. She pinches me. She will make me black and blue. And that's what they alleged, and, like, apparently that's enough to, like, just their alleging that happened to their dead daughter, like, before she died, was enough to kick on, like, the craziest, and I literally mean the craziest witch hunt that happened in, like, 7 months.
They just went ballistic.
Yeah, 42 people were accused, 11 people were tried and found guilty. Some people skipped town. In all of this, there was never, ever did they find anybody named Good Wife Aries. And that's the funniest part about this. The character who started this
doesn't even exist.
Nothing.
It's just...
It's like magic or something.
It's just some trip name character.
Yeah, almost. And like, this is the funny thing is because I was researching Hartford witch trials because I wanted to do like a GURPS game on it, like a general utility role playing system game.
Yeah, the Witchfinder General you were calling it.
Yeah. It was going to be based off of the Vincent Price movies, The Witchfinder General, and the Hartford witch trials. And so I did a lot of research for this. Like, I just kind of got stuck on the Malleus Maleficarum when I was doing this research for like a tabletop game because it was just too funny. Because my original idea was, okay, I'm going to make the world run off the rules of the Malleus Maleficarum. And then I was like, oh, I have to actually read the book if I'm going to do this game. And then I just got stuck because that thing is just too funny.
Well, yeah, I mean, when the first page is just all about, like, teleporting semen and what the devil is and is not capable of doing in regards to semen for page after page after page.
Why do you think it was the bestseller for like 200 years?
There's nowhere else you're going to read about that.
Yeah.
Straight up. It is 4chan level smut for 700 pages.
200 years.
I would have it in my house. Or maybe, well, you have to believe in witches. So you'd be like, yeah, I got the Malleus. I know all about it.
It's like, well,
and then you can kind of defend yourself. You'd be like, you know what? You're coming on to me kind of strong.
You might be a witch.
You might be a witch.
Trying to persuade other people that you're not a witch.
Or maybe we could both pretend that the other one doesn't think we're a witch and pretend this never happened.
You just slap him with the book.
Slap him with the... Just like John Wick.
You just show him your torture implements, and they're like, oh yeah, he's a good guy. You know, he's on the up and up. He's got his torture implements.
They would put you in a chair with spikes. They would wrap your head in ropes and squeeze the ropes until your head popped.
I still like how they had a whole system of, okay, if you survive, you're a witch, and if you're gonna die, you must be innocent, but you could possibly die. We don't know.
Well,
God will sort him out.
So if you were torturing a really young girl, right, and she was just like, okay, I'm a witch, it was because the devil abandoned her. Because she wasn't hardcore enough. And if you were like some badass intellectual that just was pissed off at the church and your accusers and you're just like, I'm not admitting shit, then it was because the devil was with you and you really weren't feeling any actual pain. And the tears that you were crying were actually just spittle.
Okay, so like...
Because they had a prayer that they would...
Like, okay, that's the funniest thing is they have like this way of... They talk about how to interrogate witches. And they're like, well, we can't give you a try and true method because the devil will figure it out and figure out how to prevent or distort it.
So you have to get creative with it.
Yeah. So it's like even written in the goddamn book that you need to come up with a good method of torture for the specific person that you're planning on torturing. Because let's face it, the only reason to do a witch hunt is because we want to torture some bitches.
And that's pretty much what it says in there.
Right? Like, everything's all like, hey, these women, let's get rid of our wives. They're witches. You know, we got all these reasons we can get rid of them.
Because I can't get hard is enough of a reason.
Yeah, my wife, she bewitched me with impotence every time I open my loins betwixt hers, you know?
Well, what
kind of shit? It's like, I don't get hard from my wife. She's a witch.
The devil lives in her meat flaps.
Yeah, dude, it's just, oh my god, it's so freaking funny.
I can't get it up. He laughs at me every time. Torture her, please. I'm weak. Give me my medicine.
Yeah, so, like, that was the funniest part about, like, all of these witch trials is they just start bringing up, like, this old medieval way of doing things.
Everything.
In, like, during a mid-enlightenment. Like, everyone thinks,
like, you could get excommunicated for not coming up with witches. The whole thing is just that somebody decided it's time to just kill some people.
Yeah, and, like, there's a lot of the scientific community is like, oh, well, this is when the Enlightenment was happening. It's like, well, the most barbaric and brutal shit was happening during the quote-unquote Enlightenment. You know, it was like we just stopped doing it as much. But then there was these people just grabbing, like, old medieval ways of doing really barbaric and brutal things. And like, oh, well, if we have a witch problem, here's a book on dealing with witches. This is how you do it. You do it the old school way. It must have been like really, really interesting for the people watching this, because people for like thousands of years have been like gathering to do like public executions and hangings and burnings. And I mean, even Jesus had a crowd at his crucifixion. This has just been a thing.
I guess people are just kind of barbaric that way, or at least that's what it seems like.
Is it like the whole horror movie thing where like, or the monster movie thing where it's the people are the monsters and not the monster?
In this case, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't even think people who are guilty of terrible crimes should be tortured. Just shoot them in the head, man. I don't see the point of torture ever. So that's just me.
Well, it's because like evil is so subtle that it can jump from one person to the other, and that like it doesn't care on who it's attached to. That like if you kill an evil person, like their evil can like enter you.
Just like in that one movie with Denzel Washington.
Think so. I'm not even sure if that's real.
The Denzel Washington movie?
Yeah.
It's really good. It has the Beatles song in it, and then the evil spirit moves from body to body, and it's just Denzel just like running after people, being like, "It's the demon in him! It's the demon in him!" And they're all like, "Denzel, you're crazy." He's like, "No, I'm hunting a demon. I'm hunting a demon." And then eventually he like gets the demon.
Well, okay, so is not that what a witch hunt's about? It's like the reverse of The Boy Who Cried Wolf, or is it the same thing?
I don't know.
Or is there never even a wolf? Like, there's never even a wolf, right?
I'm sure every now and then maybe an actual witch got burnt. Or maybe not. Maybe the actual witches were the people burning the witches.
Yeah, that was going to be my point.
The clergy. The clergy is the witches.
The people who are the actual witches are the people who decided they want to hunt witches.
Yeah, and they were exerting their word magic over the minds of the simple and the desperate and the people who really couldn't defend themselves.
And the scared and the freaking nescient and the...
and to exact property, gold, and whatever else.
So the only thing that put a stop to the Hartford witch hunts, which was like 30 years before Salem.
What happened?
Okay, so the governor was out of town this entire time. He was in England. And back then, a trip to England took like a year, just to do. You had to go there. You had to take care of your shit. There's no reason to go to England and then just come back. You would go there, stay for like 3 months, and then come back. And that's your year. Is going to England for the winter.
So he's out there doing some diplomacy, having some terrible food, enjoying the terrible weather.
Doing basically his bureaucracy bullshit that he had to do as a governor. And this is a man of science. This is an alchemist. He's an astrologer. He was an Enlightenment era guy. He was actually the smartest person in that entire colony.
So he leaves town.
Yeah, he leaves town, and then they come up with all these things about witches. Like kill like 11 people, try like 47 or 42 of them, and then a bunch of people like skip town. He comes back. He's like, whoa.
What the hell?
Yeah, what are you all doing? Wait, what? No, this is stopping right now. Like, he just puts an end to it. He's like, no, there's no witches. There's not everything that happens bad is the devil or a witch. It's like cheese just rots. It's not the devil. It's not a witch. Milk goes bad. It's not a devil. It's not a witch. And he's just like basically had to like slap some sense into these like scared people. And as soon as they get scared and they start like, one guy is like, hey, let's start doing brutal barbaric shit.
Everyone's like, yeah.
Yeah, everyone goes like, yeah, I'll feel better that way.
Let's
like,
do it.
This is like the same thing that happened in the Satanic Panic. This is like the same thing that happened in like with the Germans. It's just, you can rile a bunch of scared people to do really
terrible things.
Really, really terrible things. And they will become as bad, if not worse, than the evil that they were fearing in the first place. And like, that's the real problem about the witch hunts. You do witch hunts, you become a witch.
Well, now that it's gotten truly dark.
All right, Luke, you should tell them where they can find us.
Oh, yeah. So, if you like the show, I'm your host, Luke Madrid, and you can find us on Instagram at the_whole_rabbit_. That's our account at Instagram. You can email me at lukemadrid@gmail.com or thewholerabbitpodcast@gmail.com. You may comment on our YouTube videos, and if you are so inclined, please leave us a very good review on the iTunes review thingy because it helps us get more views.
Where can they support us?
You can support us on our Patreon, where just for only $5 a month, you will get one free show a month and all our normal shows early, as well as a shout out at the beginning of the show. So,
we also have a subscribe star if you're so politically inclined.
Yeah, we don't have anything on there yet, so you probably won't. But hey, feel free.
If you got something against Patreon,
give us money.
Yeah, we got nothing against you giving us money, man.
So that's it for this show. Thank you for listening, and eat carrots, shoot lasers.
All right.
Lasers.
All right.